So, like I said, on Monday mornings was the day of the week that my ex would go to work early. That was the only day of the week that he would work like a super early shift. And on those days, he would be working very closely with Rapunzel. And so I was fully aware of this and I really didn't care. It was not an issue for me. So I guess there was a package of hauls that the mistress had, and he must have taken hauls from her when she was sick, but she wasn't testing positive for COVID, so she was still over there being the little rat, running around and reporting back to him, telling him what's going on at work while he's not there, because he was up in here in this room actually quarantined for 10 days, or was supposed to be 10 days. So prior to that incident where he got sick out of nowhere, there was this work party. I knew that the party was not at work. I knew that it was at somebody's house, but my ex kept telling me it was at work and that I'm dropping him off at work. The reason I knew that it wasn't at work was because I saw the messages that said where the party was going to be, at one of the employees' houses. Now, why would you be lying about that? It didn't make any sense to me. I kept pressing him as the party was coming up because I knew about the party ahead of time, and he kept reiterating to me that it was at work. And I'm like, does he not get that I know that it's not at work? And why are you saying it's at work when you know it's not at work? That doesn't make any sense. Keep in mind, this is during COVID. We have a newborn. We have other people in the house to consider. Like, you can't be out here partying all the time, getting people sick, coming home, getting the baby sick, all kinds of things. And so this is why it was problematic. He has me drop him off at work the day of this party. I wasn't supposed to pick him up. I think he was going to Uber home, which was fine. But he made me drop him off at work. They were going to leave from work and go to the person's house, whoever's party it was. So I dropped him off at work, and literally down to when I'm dropping him off, I said, "You're sure the party's here?" "Yep, it's here." So I'm like, okay, cool. See you later. Knowing damn well that I have the whole address and could have popped up at the damn party, but I'm not that nuts. So I'm like, okay, whatever, bye. Like, he just gonna keep lying for no damn reason, because what I didn't understand was, what was the point of the lie? Like, why is he not saying that it's at somebody's house versus at the workplace when there's gonna be multiple people there? And I know there's gonna be multiple people there because I've seen the text messages, the invite. So it's not like it's just a party at one person's house and only him and somebody else is going to be there. There's literally like at least 10 people going to be at this house party. So I drop him off, like I said, and I drive my butt back home. Now, because of the work group chat, the people that were at the party had started sending pictures of the party to the group chat. So he's at the party and those pictures are coming in, but I don't know that just yet. I didn't know that till after. So fast forward, it must be a few days after the party. That night he came home from the party. He came home in the front door. I was sat downstairs. I think I was watching TV or something, or sewing. Like, I don't know, I was doing something downstairs. He came home from the party and he wanted me to open the front door, so I did. So he had his hood on and he went all the way upstairs. This is important, okay? A few days later, I am doing some research and I see that the pictures were sent to him. So I start looking at the pictures from the party and I start seeing that his hair was braided, but when I had dropped him off, his hair was in a bun. So that's why he came home with the hood on, because he didn't want me to see that his hair was braided, because obviously they can't braid his hair at the restaurant. So then I would know that he was at a party that was not at the restaurant, because he came home with his hair damn braided in 2 braids. So somebody was playing in his head at the damn party. I'm looking through the photos now and I see that that was a part of it. His hair was taken down and it was braided in 2. But I also see a video of him taking his grill out of his mouth and putting it into somebody else's mouth. Now, I think it was the mistress, but I can't remember because all these heifers look the same. But the fact of the matter was, I was pissed because I'm like, there's a whole pandemic. Why are you swapping spit with somebody? Why are you allowing somebody to put your grill in their mouth and even have the audacity to record it during a pandemic? You have children, you have a wife, you have other people to consider. Why are you taking your grill out? I was just disgusted at the whole thing, okay? So when I see these pictures, obviously I confront about it because I'm like, this is disgusting. Like, you really had your grill in somebody's mouth. Were you tonguing them down too? Like, I was so mad. I was actually sat there seeing the pictures come through on my children's iPad because his iCloud was logged into our middle child's iPad. And so anytime I felt like anything was off, I would just check it. And so that's pretty much how I was constantly being able to monitor what was going on behind my back because I was seeing it on the iPad. And then I would see it on the iPad and delete it, or check it when I felt like he was lying about something. And that's how I always got my facts and my evidence. So at that point, I'm fully aware, I'm fully cognizant that there's somebody else possibly, potentially in the picture. I just don't know to what magnitude. I don't know how serious it is. I don't know anything, but I know it's inappropriate. Okay. And I know we're not broken up, and I know we're not separated. And I know that even though certain things might be on the table, I'm still being gaslit a lot and like told the opposite of what I know to be true. So that made it even harder to deal with. So as I stated, because my ex is a pathological liar, like just there's no words to express or explain how much of a liar he is. I was forced to constantly have to cross-check and cross-reference anything that he told me. Like, I could never take what he's saying as facts or truth or evidence. I would always have to check it. So that was a big part of why I would, check the iPad. But like, I don't know at what point I realized that literally everything that came out of his mouth was a lie. But it was at that point that I was constantly, checking. But like, before that, there was no need to. I wasn't like that. You know what I mean? Every once in a while, if I got like an instinct, I might check. But other than that, no, not really. Like, for what? Though I know that there is this work wife there, I really don't think that at that point, I really didn't think that it was going to cross any boundaries, and which I don't understand why, because this person had no boundaries and does not care about boundaries. So I should have already known, but like, I just didn't feel like it would go anywhere serious, or I just didn't think so, because the only boundary that I had known about at that point was about a time he had driven her home in my vehicle with no license. And so that was the first like red flag. Like, why is there a person in my car? Because we had already had that conversation, because I knew that he was using my car, and I kept telling him, you don't have a license, you're drinking often and driving my car. I don't like it. You need to stop doing these things, and I don't want anybody in my car, especially because you were just caught, sir, in a cheating scandal. I don't want any women in my car, and that's not what the vehicle's for. You're supposed to take it to work and come back home. You're not an Uber service. These people are not gassing my car. They're not putting insurance in my car, and you have no license. So you shouldn't be driving anybody home in my vehicle. The reason that I knew that the work wife, aka the mistress, was in my car was because she had texted him and asked him if she forgot her YSL clutch in my car. And so this was the second incident, because the first time I realized somebody was in my car was because they left a cue card in there, and it wasn't my ex's writing. And so it was a cue card from his workplace with stuff on it that had to do with the workplace, but it wasn't his writing, and it was on the passenger side on the floor. Like, did somebody leave this in here on purpose? I was pissed, child. So I found it. He was sitting playing video games, and I came in from the truck, and I put my arm around his body and I whispered in his ear. I said, if you drive anybody home in my effing car again, you won't have a car to drive. Okay? That's what I told him. A few weeks later, I see a text come in talking about some damn YSL clutch. I said, didn't I just tell this mother effer don't have nobody up in my car? Didn't I just tell this mother effer don't have nobody up in my car? I said, what does that look like at work? You leaving with this person. Why are you driving her home if she lives so close to damn work? I don't give a damn if it's snowing, nothing. Because that's what he was trying to tell me. He drove her home because of the snow and blah, 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 blah. Don't have nobody in my effing car, period. Okay? And you ain't got no damn license. Don't be driving nobody home in my car. I was so mad. Anyway, so the mistress had texted him and said if she left her YSL clutch in there, I guess she couldn't find it. I see the message and I'm like, so you don't respect me, and you don't respect my wishes, and you don't respect my vehicle. You better run me my car keys. But he didn't run me my car keys, okay? So, like I said, I didn't really feel like this person posed a threat to anything, because we already had our other problems going on anyway. But like, I just didn't feel like the person would add anything to the situation. Because though after my ex cheated, my guard was up, I wasn't insecure in myself. You know, when that happened, I mean, I could look in the mirror any day, makeup, no makeup, and be like, she's that girl. So I wasn't insecure in myself. I wasn't sat there comparing myself to other women. You know, I didn't have my guard up in that sense, but I was insecure in the relationship just because I felt like I wasn't dealing with somebody that is faithful. And I felt like because my ex was constantly spending so much time at work, like we did not see him, okay? Because he was choosing to constantly be in the work environment and preferred to be in the work environment, I knew that if the opportunity presented itself again, he probably would go ahead and do it. And like, I was like, that's just not fair to me or the kids. So like, I wasn't trying to experience that again or hear all that, because that would have to be my last try. I'm not going to be with a serial cheater. You know what I mean? So based on that, I was insecure in the relationship, but not insecure in myself. Baby, if I want to bag a nigga, I'm a bag a nigga, period. Like, it is what it is. I'm sorry. I don't make the rules, baby. I don't. But like, I wasn't insecure in myself and what I look like or how I felt about myself. But I was definitely just insecure in the actual relationship because there were so many problems outside of somebody else, you know, coming into the equation and making it even more complicated than it already was. I was begging for so many things. I was begging for therapy. I was begging for peace. I was begging for just so many different things from my ex as a collaborative effort, and was being met with so much resistance. I felt like that plus the work environment was a catalyst for destruction. You know, because though I'm being met with resistance, I'm also being gaslit. So I'm being met with resistance and being pretty much told we don't need to work on anything. Everything is fine. Everything is perfect. You know, all that love bombing BS. And I'm literally screaming at the top of my lungs like, no, it's not. Like, let's fix this. Let's fix this. And they're telling me there's nothing to fix. And it's perfect and all these things. And I'm just like, I can't sit in the delusion. Like, I can't sit in the delusion. So something's got to give. It was the perfect foundation for him to cheat again. There was just too much, you know, opportunity there. You know, that was despite him swearing up and down that he would never do that again. So it was just like, I don't think, do you believe that? Like, because I don't believe it. You know what I mean? So, you know, we were going nowhere fast. And I knew that we were going nowhere fast. And now it wasn't just 1 and 2 children, it was 3 children. So I knew that at that point, I'm gonna have to make a decision. That being said, I wanted to exhaust all of our options before we decided to do divorce. Because when I was looking back at my journal entries, I was stating that I'm scared to leave. I feel like if I leave, he's going to be even worse to me than he is now. So I didn't really predict it. I just knew it in my spirit that that's what was going to happen. And if you've been watching the content, that's what's happened. It's a big part of why I stayed as long as I did, despite knowing that there's things coming in left, right, and center to affect everything going on. So at this point, we are fighting all the time, and there's so much back and forth. And like every time he would do something that was in the realm of deception, it would send me into flight mode, and I felt toxic and I felt gross. I was getting to that point where I'm like not even recognizing myself because I was constantly in fight mode or flight mode, but a lot of it was fight mode. So we had a huge blowout. It was one of the last ones we would ever have. We were trying to figure out the living situation because I could not deal anymore. I was so done. And I couldn't take any more disrespect. I couldn't take any more sadness, abuse. And at that time, I'm not even accepting that it's abusive. You know, I'm just in it. You know, I'm just like thinking this is just a rough patch, or this is just the end of the rope. You know, it is what it is. I'm, you know, fully aware of that and trying to understand, you know, what our next is going to look like. In those moments, if you had told me I was in an abusive relationship, I would have looked at you crazy. I would have looked at you absolutely insane, because no, I'm not. And I have said this before, like, I feel like one of the biggest reasons that I never believed it or thought that I was in an abusive relationship was because I was in fight mode all the time. So though I'm being gaslit, though I'm being disrespected, though I'm being berated, belittled, whatever you want to say, I am constantly saying no, no, no. I'm arguing. I'm trying to take a stand, but it's not doing anything. Nothing is changing. And so that's why in my head I'm like, I'm not in an abusive relationship, because even though it's mental gymnastics and it's a lot of emotional abuse, it hasn't passed a certain point. It hasn't gotten too physical. Like, I'm just not accepting that. I refuse to accept that. That being said, we weren't at the time discussing divorce, but we were discussing separation, being out of each other's space to work on our individual selves and growth, which I thought was silly because I felt like my ex was going through a lot mentally and emotionally, and I felt like we should be supporting each other through whatever, because that's what marriage is about. But it was like he was talking out of both sides of his neck, so it wasn't making any sense to me. And for a long time, it was evident that my ex was only concerned about himself. He wasn't concerned about our children. He wasn't concerned about me. So I was just like, okay, well, if you are not concerned about your family, that's okay, but you can't do it in our face. That was just my attitude. I'm like, you can't do it in our face. You know what I mean? So I'm like, sir, if you want to live the bachelor life, that's okay. But don't sit here and tell me, we need to separate and we're going to work on our individual selves and then come back together. Like, that doesn't make any sense, because I don't see how us separating and you living in your own place without the children, without me, and how is that going to change what's going on in our situation for us to come back together? That doesn't make any sense, because if you are at home now and you're just not here, like their body's there, but they're just not present, how is you going elsewhere going to make you more present? It's going to make you more awake. So I'm like, what you're saying is not making any sense to me, and I'm not falling for the okie dokie. I already know what's going to happen if that is the case, and I'm cool with it. So let's just call a spade, And so this is pretty much when things with the mistress started to really turn inappropriate, because we were trying to figure out the marital situation, what are we doing type of thing. And because people like this tend to be working on and grooming their new supply prior to the the narcissistic discard, there was never going to be a let's go our separate ways, work on ourselves, and then come back together. I knew that was not the plan, even though that's what I was being fed. So I started to keep an even bigger eye on what was going on outside of my home, because I knew without a shadow of a doubt that there was somebody else in the picture based on how my ex was treating me at home again.